I made over $2,300 on Poshmark just by selling clothes from my own closet. No fancy equipment, no big inventory. If you're new to Poshmark or thinking about starting, this is your complete beginner's guide. I'll walk you through everything, including what to sell, taking pictures, creating listings, making your first sale, packaging and shipping, and finally, getting paid. I'm Grace, and welcome to Gracefully Smart, where we work together to figure out how to live a better, smarter life. I started out with a pair of jeans that didn't fit anymore. I snapped a few pictures on my phone and posted them on Poshmark. Within a day, I had made my first sale. A few dollars turned into a few hundred, and eventually, a few thousand. So, if you're just beginning, here's exactly what I'd do, starting with what to sell. Now, a quick note before we begin, I am not a professional reseller. I don't go sourcing inventory with the sole purpose of reselling it. I only sell old clothes from my own closet, as well as my family's closets. Knowing what to sell helps you focus on what buyers want, boosting your chances of making a sale. If you're just getting started, the best place to begin is with a big closet clean out. Pull out any items that you don't wear anymore, but are still in good condition, especially those with resale value. The good news is, you probably already own items that people are actively searching for. The first thing you want to look at is brand. Well-known brands sell the best because buyers typically search on Poshmark by specific brands that they like. Popular brands on Poshmark include Nike, Lululemon, Free People, and Anthropologie. The brands I sell the most include American Eagle, Hollister, Tommy Hilfiger, Gap, and Banana Republic. Now, it's still possible to sell an item without a recognizable brand. It just might take longer to sell. You'll also have to compensate with a detailed title and description to make your item more searchable, which we'll discuss later. Another thing you should look at is season. Fashion is a very cyclical industry because the weather heavily influences what people wear. As you may have guessed, shorts and t-shirts sell the best in the spring and summer, and sweaters and jackets sell the best in fall/winter. You also might want to familiarize yourself with fashion trends. Depending on the current fashion trends, some styles have more demand than others. For example, right now, a pair of straight-leg jeans is probably going to sell better than a pair of jeggings, which was more popular in the 2010s. Now, it's not absolutely necessary. There's always someone for each style, and you really only need one buyer that's interested enough to purchase your item, but it'll give you an idea of why some items may sell better than others. To get to know the current fashion trends, go ahead and scroll on websites such as Pinterest, Instagram, and YouTube, where there's a plethora of different resources and influencers to help you out. And finally, you're going to want to check the condition of the item. You may want to ask yourself, how many times did I wear this? If you only wore it a few times, then you can even put it in your description to emphasize its newness. You also want to look for flaws such as stains, holes, pilling, fading, shrinkage, etc. If there are flaws, that's okay. You'll just need to clarify that in your description so your buyer knows exactly what they're getting. But if an item is too damaged or too worn, I wouldn't even bother listing because you probably won't be able to sell it for that high anyway. But also, as a Poshmark seller, you're still selling products to a customer, so you want your closet to have a reputation of selling high quality items. So now that you've picked out what to sell, it's time to learn how to take pictures. Your photos are the first thing buyers see and are one of the biggest factors that determine whether or not your item sells. A lot of full-time resellers use professional cameras, lighting, and backdrops to take their pictures, but we're not going to do that. It's great if you already have or are willing to purchase this equipment, but if you're just starting out, we want to minimize the costs and start selling as soon as possible. So here's my background. I use this empty rolling clothing rack as well as a neutral bedsheet. A blank white bedsheet is the best, but I don't have one, so I use this white one with a floral pattern. Then I throw it across the clothing rack and pull it straight. And finally, I iron out the wrinkles. To take pictures, I simply place my clothing on a hanger and then hang it on the clothing rack on top of the bedsheet. Another tip is that if you do have an iron, I would recommend ironing your clothes before you take pictures of them. This makes your clothes look newer as well as more appealing to potential buyers. If you don't have a rolling clothing rack, another solution is using a command hook on a wall. And you can also take pictures of your clothing lying flat on a table or bed. Personally, I prefer using a clothing hanger just because it's faster to take pictures of a lot of clothing, and also it's better for your back since you don't have to be hunched over a table or bed all the time. The key here is just to have a neutral background that doesn't distract from your clothes. As for lighting, nearby a window is best as natural light shows up the best in photos. If you don't have a good place near a window or limited natural light, you can also use 1 or 2 lamps to help brighten up your photos. Just make sure you adjust the placement to minimize shadows. For the camera, I like to use my phone. A tip here is to make sure you change camera settings to automatically take pictures in square, because once you start start posting on Poshmark, the app is going to make you want to crop them anyway. The angles I like to take include the front, a close-up, the back, any specific details, tags, including the ones that show brand, size, and material, and finally, measurements. Now, taking pictures of measurements is the most time-consuming, but it'll be really important in boosting sales. This is because it makes the decision process way easier for buyers if they know immediately whether or not your item is going to fit them. I prefer taking pictures of my measurements rather than just putting them in the description, because let's say if a buyer buys my item, it arrives and they realize it doesn't fit, they won't be able to argue that I measured wrong. When you measure, make sure the surface and item is completely flat and the tape measure is aligned. Then, take the picture, making sure you can clearly read the measurement. For tops, I like to do armpit to armpit, as well as top to bottom. For bottoms, I like to do waist, rise, and inseam/length. If I'm being honest, when I have a lot of clothes to take pictures of, I tend to get lazy and skip measurements to save time, and I only post them if someone asks. But this is not the best if you're looking to maximize sales. If you are on a time crunch, I would recommend prioritizing measuring pants over tops. Usually for tops, if it's a little too big or a little too small, you can get away with it. But most of the time for pants, they either fit or they don't. Once you've taken your pictures, go ahead and review them. And also feel free to edit them if the lighting is not the best. To save time, you can simply go into editing mode on your phone and click the magic wand. Otherwise, you can play around with different settings such as exposure, brilliance, brightness, etc. Another tip is that for dark colored clothing, you can lower the contrast so you can see more of the details and your picture is not just of a black blob. But I only recommend editing to correct the lighting in a picture and avoid using editing tools to change the color. You want your pictures to be as accurate as possible to the original item. And finally, once you're done taking pictures, it's important to store your clothing safely. Fold your clothes nicely and store them in a safe, dry area covered from dust. I like to use these large boxes from Costco, but you can also use a dresser, a maintained closet, or even a clean suitcase if you're running low on space. You also want to organize your items in a way that's easy to find, because the worst is when you finally make a sale, but you end up having to cancel it because you can't find your item. I like to stay simple. I usually just keep one box for sweaters and one box for tops and bottoms. With your pictures done, the next step is listing your items on Poshmark. A good listing isn't just about photos. It's about making your item easily searchable and telling the buyer exactly what they're getting. Here, I have these light wash PacSun jeans, and I'm gonna walk you through how I would list these. So the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna select the pictures that you need for your listing. I'm gonna select these pictures and then click Add. It's gonna give you the option to crop your photos, but since I already took my pictures in square, I can just skip this. Then it's going to ask you to select the cover shot. This is going to be the first picture that buyers see when they're scrolling through Poshmark. Now Poshmark is going to give you the option to edit some of your pictures. I usually skip this because the filters they give you distort the color too much. So I'm just going to hit next. So the first thing is going to be the title. So in the title, you're going to want to include things such as the brand, style. So for example, if I'm listing this pair of jeans, I'm going to write PacSun light wash 90s boyfriend high-waisted straight leg jeans. Now I'm going to go back to my pictures and just see what else that they have on the tag. So they're also stretch 90s boyfriend, so I'm going to add that to the title. Stretch 90s boyfriend high-waisted straight leg jeans. For the description, the first thing I usually do is that I copy and paste the title just to fill some space. This is completely not necessary. I like to include the size again in the description, even though Poshmark is going to ask for it later, because Poshmark only lets you choose one size, and sometimes the size is more specific on the actual item. So usually for the condition, I go on a scale from good, excellent, new without tags to new with tags. For these jeans, I'm going to say they are excellent, and I only wore them a few times. Other things you want to include here include flaws. These jeans don't have any, so I'm going to skip that, and also other details such as material. I'm pretty sure these are 99% cotton, 1% elastane, 1% spandex. Same thing as elastane, but I'm going to change that to be consistent. And then the last thing I usually include is just these two simple phrases. Open to offers, bundle for an extra discount. And this basically just encourages buyers to send an offer if they're interested. So for category, I'm going to go into women, jeans, and then these are straight leg, so I'm going to hit straight leg. Quantity, I'm going to skip. Size 24, brand PacSun. Color blue. Usually I skip style tags to save time, but if you're interested, you can just go in here, and then there's a bunch of different tags that you can add. And now, it's time for the fun part, which is how to price your items. So the first thing you need to do is to determine what kind of pricing strategy that you want. My main goal is to get rid of as many clothes as possible, so I like to price on the lower side and make up for sales with volume. But if you have fewer items and your goal is to make back the money that you spent, then you might want to price higher. So how do you know what to price your items at? So if I go back here, for original price, I'm gonna say $0 because I usually don't know since I rarely buy my clothes full price anyway. And there's also nothing searchable about the discount you're offering relative to the original price. And then as you can see here, under listing price, a suggested price is gonna pop up. Now this is a great place to start because what this is gonna show you is what similar listings have sold for. So here we can see between $16 and $34, and you can see them right over here. But the thing with Poshmark's suggested price, it can fluctuate based on your title as well as what categories you selected. So for example, if I go back to category, instead of straight leg, I selected boyfriend because it is the 90s boyfriend. Then you can see the suggested price changes to $13 to $28. Now I'm gonna go back and change it to straight leg because I think there are more buyers looking for straight leg jeans than boyfriend jeans, which are a little more specific. I'm gonna price this at $25 because I want to price it a little lower than what other things have sold for. I'm just gonna hit next and list, and there we go. Now another way to find comps is to search directly in the Poshmark search bar. So let's go here and I'm gonna search up PacSun Light Wash 90s Boyfriend Jeans and hit enter. I'm gonna go to availability and only look at sold items. Here, we have a bunch of comparable listings and we can see what they have sold for in the past. So here I see $10, $20, $39. So it seems like the Poshmark suggested price was pretty accurate. Another thing you can think about is the price you paid for the item and how much you want to make back. But remember, the value of clothing drops significantly once it becomes secondhand. Even items that are new with tags are difficult to sell at full price. Other things to keep in mind is that Poshmark takes a 20% fee on all sales over $15 and $2.95 on all sales under $15. That's why you're going to want to pay attention to your earnings to know how much you're actually going to make. Another thing to keep in mind is that buyers will have to pay an $8.25 shipping fee every time they make a purchase. So this is going to raise their total cost and lower their willingness to pay. Later, you'll be able to send shipping discounts to entice people to buy, which we'll discuss soon. My advice is to generally price around 20% higher than what you want to sell a listing for, just to account for when people send you offers at a lower price. For reference, my general pricing structure is $12 to $14 for tops, $16 to $20 for sweaters, bottoms, and dresses, and $25 or higher for jackets and shoes. But this does fluctuate depending on the brand, condition, and style of the item that I'm selling. The last thing I want to mention in this section is bundles. A bundle is basically when you sell more than one item to a single buyer in an order. I like to encourage buyers to make bundles as much as possible because it's more convenient for me to ship multiple items in the same package, and it also helps me get rid of inventory at a faster rate. I like to offer a 20% discount on bundles of 2 or more, and this allows buyers to make a bundle and purchase it directly at a discount rather than sending in an offer. You can adjust this by going to My Seller Tools, then My Seller Discounts, and choosing the bundle discount that you want to offer. Now that your listing is set up, here's how to attract buyers and make your first sale. Making your first sale on Poshmark can feel intimidating, but with the right strategies, it can happen faster than you think. The first thing you're going to need to do is share your listings. What is sharing? To share a listing, all you have to do is tap the icon with 2 arrows, and this lets you share your item to your followers or a party. This will make your listing more visible to others, allowing more people to click on your item and potentially buy it. You may be asking, what are followers? Followers are accounts that follow your closet and can see your listings in their feed. Poshmark automatically gives you a lot of followers and also makes you follow different accounts. Now I'm going to save you some time. Followers don't matter, and I'll tell you why in just a few seconds. You may also be wondering, what are parties? Parties basically are places where you can share your items based on a specific theme. This also doesn't matter. You can also share other people's listings and hope that they share your listings back. Guess what? This doesn't matter. None of these things matter because buyers find most items they want by searching for them directly. So then what does matter? The answer is sharing to followers, but not because your followers are the ones actually purchasing your items. Sharing to followers allows your items to show up higher in the search when buyers sort by just shared, which is usually on by default. The more you share, the higher up you will be on the search page, the more buyers click, and the higher chance you have of making a sale. Now, tapping buttons on your phone again and again to share your listings seems kind of boring, right? If you want to boost your sales to the next level, I recommend investing in a share bot. Essentially what a share bot does is that it automatically shares your listings for you. I like to use an app called ClosetMate, and I pay $10.99 per month to unlock all its features. If you're just starting, you can first test out the free version, but note it does limit how many times you can share per month, and you don't have access to offline sharing. After sharing your listings, another thing you want to do is to respond quickly to likes, comments, and offers. Likes are when buyers are interested in your item and want to save them for later. I recommend using the offer to likers button whenever you receive a like. And this is actually where most of my sales come from. To do this, all you have to do is go to offer/price drop and offer to likers. Through this, you can also send out shipping discounts, but the discounts will be deducted from your earnings as the seller. As for comments, I recommend responding as soon as possible. Most comments will be asking for things such as measurements if you haven't posted them already, or other item clarifications. Now, if I'm being honest, most of the time the people that comment on your listings are not gonna be the ones that actually buy them, but they may be asking for useful information that can help the next potential buyer make a decision. I'd recommend replying to all comments no matter what. And lastly, for offers, interested buyers may buy your item directly at its listing price, but most of the time they will send an offer that is slightly lower. You have 24 hours to respond to an offer, either by accepting, countering, or declining. My advice is to respond as soon as possible. This is because it increases the response rate to your counter offers if you decide to do so. Also, buyers just appreciate getting their item as soon as possible. If you want to learn about the more specific strategies I use to make daily sales, I have a video coming out next week about just that. The link will be in the description once it's out. Now, let's move on to packaging and shipping. Congratulations! You made your first sale. With your sale confirmed, your next step is making sure your buyer receives their item quickly and safely. As soon as you make your sale, Poshmark will send you an email with the shipping label attached. This prepaid shipping label is what makes Poshmark so convenient compared to other reselling platforms such as eBay. Here are the supplies you need to pack your item. You'll need a printer and paper, a shipping box. I use these free priority mail boxes from my local post office. You can also order these online for $0 and have them delivered to your house for free. Any sturdy box should work fine, and you can even reuse old delivery boxes if you recently ordered something. You'll also need packaging tape, and optional supplies include tissue paper, plastic bags, and package filler. So I actually made a sale as I was making this video, so I'm going to bring you along with me and show you how I packed a real sale. The first thing I do is that I find my item in storage. I inspect it for any flaws I didn't notice before, then I lint roll it if necessary. I print out and cut out the shipping label emailed to me by Poshmark, and I choose a box that fits my item. Next, I tape the box together. And after that, I wrap my item carefully in tissue paper to make it look nicer. Make sure if you choose to use tissue paper that it's white and not colored, so no dye bleeds onto your item if the package gets wet. You can also wrap your item in a plastic bag. I'm not doing that here because I don't have one big enough to fit the sweater. But if you are shipping a more delicate material such as leather, I definitely recommend adding some type of waterproof layer. I place the item in the box, then I tape the box closed, and finally tape on the shipping label, making sure to cover the entire label with tape to protect it from water. And you're done. Now, a quick note, Poshmark's prepaid shipping label is only for packages up to 5 pounds, which should be more than enough if the only thing you're shipping is clothes. But if your package does weigh more than 5 pounds, you may need to go back into the app and request an upgraded shipping label, and Poshmark will deduct the cost from your earnings as the seller. To ship your packages, all you have to do is go to your local post office and drop it off. I suggest trying to ship as soon as possible to get the best customer reviews. Within 1 day is best, but try not to wait more than 3 days. Once you ship your package, you'll receive an email from Poshmark saying that USPS has processed your package. After your item is shipped and delivered, you may be asking, how do I get paid? Getting paid on Poshmark is pretty straightforward. Your earnings are released to you once the buyer receives and accepts the package, or after 3 days of the package being delivered, whichever comes first. To redeem your earnings, you're going to want to go to My Balance. And here you'll see 2 main categories. The first is pending, which represents sales that you have made, but the earnings have not yet been released to you. Under that, you have redeemable. This represents the earnings that have been released to you, and you can use them directly to purchase on Poshmark, or have them deposited to your bank account. When you want to redeem your earnings, tap on redeemable, and you'll see a bunch of different methods to receive your earnings. Personally, I usually pick bank direct deposit, and it deposits my Poshmark earnings in my bank account within 1 to 3 business days. The process is simple, and once the money hits your bank account, you'll realize exactly how easy it is to make money from your own closet. And that's it. Everything you need to be successful on Poshmark. To recap, the first thing you want to do is pay attention to brand, condition, and style when deciding what to sell. Then, you want to take clear, high-quality photos with good lighting, a neutral background, and include multiple angles and measurements. Next, write detailed, searchable descriptions and use comps to price your items competitively. And finally, share your listings consistently and respond quickly to comments and offers. As long as you follow the steps in this video, you'll be making sales in no time. Thanks so much for watching, and feel free to drop a comment below if you have any questions. To get started on Poshmark, you can use my referral link in the description to get 10% off your first purchase. And I'll also be linking my own closet if you want to check it out. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you won't miss my next video on how to make daily sales on Poshmark. Now stop procrastinating and start listing today.